a bat as a keepsake.
Shooter from the belt to the plate. A swing and a miss, and that's the winner. That's the winner. A World Series winner for the Cardinals. Smith works one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game for a 3-2 and a home run by the Wizard. Go crazy. Swinging a long one into left field. Adios, goodbye, and maybe that's the winner. A 3-run homer by Clark, and the Cardinals lead by the score to 5, and they may go to the World Series on that one, folks.
What a team. What a ride. The Caps into 11.
Welcome to That's a Winner podcast. I am Ryan Jenkins, and with me, as always, is Josh Brown. Josh, a lot's happened since the last time that we've been on air, and what should we dive into first?
Yeah, it's been about a month.
Yeah,
we've had a litany of reasons of why. Most of them are excuses, but I had a pretty big trip to Scotland a couple weeks ago. I know you had a bout with COVID as well a couple weeks ago. So travel and everything else. Everybody knows the summer gets a little crazy, but hey, it's the All-Star break. We're here on Wednesday night. Games don't start back till Friday for most teams, so we've got a little bit of time to maybe talk some. We had a pretty fun weekend this past weekend at Busch on Saturday. Got to do a blogger day. For those of you watching who maybe write for some of the Cardinals blogs or do podcasts, this year they added podcasts to the medium, which is how we got to go there. But they brought blogger day back after I think 2 or 3 years it hadn't gone on because of COVID. That's always a fun event. I mean, comp tickets in a party suite, about a 35 minute Q&A with Mo. That was pretty interesting. He was pretty candid, pretty laid back. I would say probably the most cordial, maybe the nicest I've seen him at one of those. I've been to, I think that's the third blogger day that I've been to back when I used to write for Fansided. And so, yeah, it was fun. He had some interesting comments. We could talk some about that. You got to meet Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that occurred just in the last weekend, but let's start with Mo, I guess. So conversation with Mo, he was, you said coming in that people usually go away from that thinking Mo is awesome. And I would say that shocking. Look, I would have been a Mo detractor since day one that he started. I have just not been a fan of his smugness, of his just didn't like him in general. Just didn't like his interviews. I just didn't like it. And I come away from that thinking he was actually, he was funny. He had some charisma. He was a nice guy. Like, he was a normal dude, right? And I came away from it actually liking him more than I had before, which is you kind of said that's what people take away from it usually. And he was a lot more candid. He didn't give as many canned answers,
right?
As I would say people are used to like the media. But I mean, that's kind of where I sit with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people come that way. I mean, it depends on the question you ask sometimes, right? And I told you that when we came in, the first 10, 15 minutes, and sometimes it can be longer than that, or a little bit of softball.
I mean, they were initially they were very. I was like, all right, anybody going to get anything good here? Like, we don't have much time. Let's use this.
Yeah, and I think part of that maybe is just some timidness from people coming in. Maybe there's some new people coming. They just don't want to kind of ask too hard right off the bat. But I mean, Mo even said it himself, and it felt like he meant it. That the reason that they do this, someone even asked, like, why are you sending? You could send Michael Gershon here. He's technically the GM now. You're the president of baseball operations. And a part of that is with COVID, he said, his role kind of was starting to settle in as a Pobo, and then he kind of had to jump back in a little bit more with that. But he said, I mean, mainly, we do this because good, bad, ugly, you guys are talking about the Cardinals, you're writing about the Cardinals, and you have subscribers and listeners, and it's a medium that people listen to. And so they appreciate the fact that, fans are passionate enough to do this stuff. And it didn't feel like he was just saying that. It felt like he actually meant it. And part of it, like you said, is to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit on their processes of stuff. So there was a lot of questions about drafting, about prospects, about how they scout. Had pretty interesting, I think one of the more interesting questions about Jeff Albert, and Mo had plenty of praise to give him. I think the phrase he used, one of the phrases he used on Jeff Albert was, he's not a traditional hitting coach. He's more like a scientist in a lab. I think was the phrase he used. And that for me, it was like, okay, putting it that way, I can see more.
He's not a he did say he's not a hitting instructor.
Yes, which I thought was really interesting because his role is a hitting coach. But he said the philosophy that he's put forward at the high level, the high vision for the entire organization, he thinks he's achieved already. And you look at guys like Nolan, Gorman, Yepez, Brandon Donovan coming up. I mean, now Yepez and Gorman have hit a little bit of a rut the last couple of weeks, and Yepez is on the IL right now. But those guys came up and have been hitting, been producing, got the launch angle, the exit velocity. So a lot of that's what he's been teaching. And I think it is interesting that he talked about him that way. And when I heard him give that answer, it kind of made me realize a little bit more like, okay, well, that's, the role they have for him isn't necessarily actual hitting coach. He's not telling Goldschmidt and Arenado or Albert Agati like what they need to be doing. He literally said he's like a scientist in the lab. He's forward in the analytics, and he's another voice that can come in and say, and what might I be missing here? What can I do different? Like, so that I thought was interesting, and it made sense to me. I mean, the prospect things, he had a lot of interesting, talk on that in the draft because the Cardinals are getting more value out of their picks than anyhow.
Right. But what I took the most from it was actually a little insight into Jeff Albert and Mike Schilt.
Yeah.
I think I got more in a comment that he made than I ever did in the entire offseason of Mike Schilt being fired.
I think we got the philosophical differences explained a little bit.
I think we finally understand what that is. I mean, what he said was people were complaining of coming to work and hating it. And they said it was Jeff Albert's fault or it was Mike Schilt's fault. And people hated each other and they hated coming to work. I mean, you think about that. An organization of this magnitude, and guys are just going and running off to Mo and complaining like, ugh, I hate it here. And half of them said fire Jeff Albert, and half of them were saying fire Mike Schilt. So whenever the players and some other people said, we were shocked, I don't think there was a shock. I think that was some BS that was given from players and some other people in the organization. And I think the media should have been more on that if it was that well known. But he pretty much said that once they got rid of Jeff Albert, the chirping stopped and everyone was happy. Now, the chirping hasn't completely stopped. I think.
Schilt.
No, when they got rid of Schilt,
right.
They said when they kept Jeff Albert,
right,
then the chirping stopped about Jeff Albert.
Yeah,
and so
it has this year. Now the offense has been better. It's still
right. I think people
at times
are on, but maybe more Twitter folk than anywhere else.
Yeah.
They're still off on Jeff Albert, but he pretty much said that it was Jeff Albert and Schilt that didn't like each other, and it was creating an issue in the clubhouse. So I think at that point he had to decide: is it Jeff Albert or Mike Schilt that we're getting rid of? And obviously he chose Jeff Albert, which I think we knew that part already. But
by the high praise he gave Jeff Albert, I mean, it's not entirely surprising that's why he got rid of Schilt. I mean, Schilt, if he really feels like he's completed that, he's reached that philosophy that he's put forward and at the high level and is doing it well, then. And he had some high praise for Marmol as well. Talked a little bit about him, had some comments of just, obviously a lot of young managers don't get a chance to do this young, especially this franchise. He thought he's been doing well. But I think for me, the comment that stuck out most was when someone finally asked a little bit about the trade deadline, and him talking some about that, it's pretty clear that we need innings. So we'll go after that. He didn't say for sure that it'll be a big deal, but he did say that, yeah, we'll probably take a different route than, Jay Happ or John Lester, a couple of older veterans last year kind of projects. So, I mean, by that measure, you would think he's going to go at least get someone a little bit more proven, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a couple of years of control. But we were talking about this earlier. I mean, the trade deadline this year in terms of pitching and starters, there's not a lot of great ones available unless you're going to go after like a young one like Montes, or the Giants are going to offload, Carlos Rodon, which could happen. Right. I mean, they're pretty far out from the Dodgers now, but they're still in play for
They're
third wild card
4
spot.
out from wild card or something like that.
Yeah. So
I think it was really telling the way that he talked about it. That
Yeah.
he
he was still pretty candid about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
we need
peeled-
innings.
he peeled back the layers a little bit and was like, look, we're not going to really go the same last year. We're going to try and get something a little more substantial. Someone that's going to go more than 5 innings every 5 days, I think is the quote that he said. Someone that's going to give more than 5 innings every 5 days.
Yeah, need quality starts.
Yeah. And so I think that was really more than I expected to get out of him, to be honest. Now, in that conversation, someone asked about players that are off limits. Is there anyone off limits? I think that was a big part of that conversation too. He said no one is off limits. He said I always worked in absolutes before.
Not anymore.
And he said I don't pigeonhole myself into absolutes. Meaning he said if Mike Trout became available, we would be interested.
Right.
And at that time, literally, I saw that Juan Soto had come out that he declined.
5 minutes into his Q&A,
And-
he had no idea that information had come out.
I showed it to you and I said, "Oh, Juan Soto's just announced that he's not taking that deal." So that opened up that part of it. But he was giving hypotheticals through Mike Trout, and he said no one was off limits. He would trade anyone if he felt it helped the club.
You would probably trade player X for Mike Trout. Someone said Shohei Ohtani. He was like, yeah, you'd probably trade. Some of us were saying Juan Soto. I don't know if he heard it, but I'm sure he would have nodded his head as
He
well.
may have already known about Juan Soto. You don't know.
Maybe so. Maybe they've already been talking.
Right.
But, I mean, if he didn't and he nodded his head and then he saw that information afterwards, he's probably like, oh, gosh.
Yeah. So, so he opened up the door without opening up the door because we didn't know. He didn't really, or, as a group, we didn't know that Juan Soto was now available.
Right.
And we didn't know that the
They
Cardinals
were going to be open to trading him at least.
Right. And we didn't really know that. And he kind of opened the door and then spoke in the hypothetical version of that, using Mike Trout as that centerpiece. And he pretty much said no one is off the table. You have to assume that's Goldie is not off the table and Arenado. It doesn't make sense because the value back to anyone doesn't make a lot of sense.
He was definitely talking prospect wise.
Right. Absolutely.
Sure.
And I think that's how I took it as well. Pretty much was, would you trade Jordan Walker for Mike Trout? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
And if you would Mike Trout, why would you not Juan Soto, who's 8 years younger, 7 years younger?
But he's also regarded as the best player in baseball. But
yes,
that's why you do it. But that's part of the conversation that I had that I took away from Mo as well.
So you're telling me we're going to trade for, right? We're going to get into this, I promise.
Yeah.
We've got opinions on this.
Yeah, well, let's table that for a moment. So let's go back to John Mozeliak and talk about the question asked. You and I both had the same question when what we wanted to ask, and it was pretty much in the same line. So go ahead. What did you ask John, and it was his answer back?
Yeah. So 15 minutes in, we had. People were asking good questions, but they were a little bit more kind of softball questions, and so I just asked him. Somebody had asked about the trade deadline and kind of staying on that topic, before. So this was Saturday. We were at Busch. The day before that, Friday, Derek Gould had a story that had comments from Nolan Arenado about. He pretty much said, I don't want to win the wild card anymore. Like, I want to win the division. I've never won a division. I've never been a part of that. Obviously, make the playoffs, great. That's the goal. But I want to win the division. And he said, we're right there. We're right here in it. There's some things that we need. It always feels good to add. These were the comments that Arenado had. So I just asked him, I said, look, obviously those comments perked our ears up. I'm sure you saw it. When you've got a franchise star player having those comments, who's got an opt-out at the end of this year, and this is exactly how I phrased the question. And I said, Adam Wainwright's a question mark next year. Yachty and Albert, this is their last ride. When you kind of look at all together with Nolan's comments, does it motivate you a little bit more maybe to go out and make a bigger trade this year, or make a bigger move than in years past? Or does it motivate Mr. DeWitt to say, yeah, let's go for it a little bit more this year, given that, are not opt out, given that it's Albert and Yachty's last ride, possibly Wainwright's, although I think he'll be back. But I just asked him that, and I thought I was just going to get kind of a sarcastic, and he did say, he said, well, I'll answer simple, like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
His first thing was no,
and that was his first thing. So he was honest, but he said, he he didn't just completely pass it off. So he did, and that was when he talked a little bit more about, like, it's clear that we need pitching, clear that we need innings. We're going to be involved. We're going to be involved at the trade deadline. So even him saying those things was, I mean, more than we would get in the past. So I had to ask the question. And of course he said too, it doesn't, there's so much we look at this, we're not going to just blow up the farm system, right? Which I mean, none of us would expect them to, especially for pitching this trade deadline. But he said too, like, look, myself, Mr. DeWitt, we want to win the division as well. And I know Nolan hasn't had that happen, but we've had it happen quite a bit over the last 10 years, which is true. So in that way, obviously I wasn't trying to phrase the question like, Mo and DeWitt don't want to win the division. Of course they do. But I think, it was interesting that this even let us know, like, yeah, we're going to be active in the trade deadline. So
this is the part that I wrote down of what he said. I kind of wrote it down as his answer, but his answer was no to you. But he said you could let comments affect your thinking, but I think that would be silly.
right.
We have plans and decisions that uses math, and that really doesn't change our plans. We want to win the division too. We are trying as well.
Yeah.
That was the big thing, was like, yeah, Nolan, we want to win the division as well. You're not the only one that wants to win the division. That was kind of his knockback at Arenado. That's how I took it. Was like, yeah, bro, yeah, we want it as well.
Yeah.
And pretty much he says we have a calculation of how we get to point A and point B. Why we would say yes and why we would say no to certain things is based on, math, as he said, of how we get there. And was it a canned answer? Did he answer the way I expected? Kind of, sort of, yeah. That's kind of what I expected out of it. I didn't expect him to be like, we're so scared now. Arenado's going to opt out. We're going to do whatever he says. He was never going to say that. That was never going to be what changed it. But
no, and obviously they're banking on, he's not going to leave all that money on the table, Nolan, and he probably won't. I mean, even just based on last year, we only made the wild card. We just barely got in, and before you could even get to the wild card game, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not opting out." So
coming off a 17-game win streak,
right,
he was pretty high.
Yeah, pretty high. But I mean, we're half a game out of first place. We were further than that last year at this point, for sure. Probably 4, 5, 6 games out at this point last year after the atrocious June we had last year. So I think, that was calculated by Nolan, Arenado, by saying that. I think if anything, he knew, like, well, it'll at least get Mo, it'll at least get people asking Mo about that and thinking more about, being active. So I think it's pretty clear they're going to be active. I think Mo, we didn't ask him this, and I wish we would have. Like, hey, do you believe you can count on anything from Jack Flaherty this season?
No one did. No one, yeah.
I wish I would have thought that in the moment. That would have been a good question. I mean, I'm sure he would have tiptoed around that carefully, but I'm sure he's thinking like most of us, like, yeah, like he's got to approach this trade deadline in terms of pitching. Like you can't count on anything from Jack, because there's nothing guaranteed. I mean, the fact of the matter is the guy has not been out on the mound every fifth day healthy since 2020.
And you really can't depend on Matz either, even though he's going to go.
He's going to pitch this weekend.
Is it Friday or no? I don't.
They haven't announced.
I thought they saw. I thought I saw it, but either way, Matz is going to get the opportunity, and you can't really.
He's with us for 4 years.
Well,
so.
but you can't guarantee he's going to be healthy either.
Right.
You can't guarantee he's going to give you anything out of it. So why, you have to make moves in thinking that way. But then let's kind of move on to Juan Soto.
Yep.
By
the way, those of you sending us comments here on the live stream, we appreciate that. I see John Brajner, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, sorry. What about Noah Syndergaard? We can get in some pitching candidates for the trade deadline. That's one you and I have talked about off the air. Travis Swindell as well. I hope the Cardinals get Juan Soto. Right there with you, Travis.
Yeah, so Travis Swindell probably, right?
Yeah, probably Swindell. Sorry.
Let's get into the Juan Soto part of it. Good eye on the chat there that they popped up. Good job there.
He's on the block.
Juan Soto.
They didn't even fly him out to the All-Star game, man.
I couldn't believe that.
That's how bad it is.
Could you imagine getting on your flight to LA to go to the All-Star game and Juan Soto is on your flight with you?
Waiting at the airport 2 hours for commercial.
Could you imagine? I would that right there. I'm surprised I don't know. That's just crazy to me. But he was the only representative. So my thought, like, well, if anyone else was there, like, then they obviously screwed them too.
Right.
But he was the one and only representative.
Still messed up.
That's crazy. Very crazy.
And the fact that he gets in like 2 a.m. and then gives a big middle finger by winning the
Oh yeah,
winning the home run derby is just
Oh,
fantastic.
gosh. All right.
And he seems like a humble guy because that news came out. That was not from Juan Soto. He didn't come out and
Right.
complain about that.
He
didn't
said,
come out
"I'm
and
not
say it
signing
all.
with him." Yes, somebody else leaked it. Could have been
Yeah,
his agent.
Somebody,
but-
well, somebody got that information somehow, and of course asked Boris about it. And Boris immediately was like, "Yeah, that's true, and it happened." And so, if anything, kudos with Juan Soto. He does not seem like he's hiring drama to a clubhouse at all. He seems like a pretty humble kid, which is the type of personality you want. Even, I mean, he's a superstar. He doesn't have to act that way.
So let's just say the Cardinals are actively, which there are reports out there that they are actively putting together an offer to send to the Nationals. Who is off limits to you for the Cardinals to give up? Do you have any no, we are not giving up X, Y, or Z? Do you have anybody?
We've talked about this a lot via text. I mean, I think it depends on what type of deal you're doing, right? So Jim Bowden, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Jim, I'm sorry. He's with The Athletic. He came out with an article today talking about what it's going to take, talking about what the Nationals are thinking. And he literally said, and let me read it here so I don't get it wrong. He put in his story on The Athletic, bottom line, the Nationals want Patrick Corbin's salary off their books, even if they end up with fewer players or prospects in the deal because of it.
Right. So
That was like the big thing today.
So let's segment it in two different scenarios.
Right.
Because I think they can still trade Juan Soto and don't give up Patrick Corbin because people don't want to teams. I'll say
Yeah, they might
don't
just
want to deal
they
with
might just find that nobody's going to do that. So then you're like,
Right.
okay, well then we're just going to listen to deals just for Juan.
So let's just look at it as Juan Soto. Cardinals are going to get Juan Soto. Who are off limit from the Cardinals that you say no, we cannot give up?
It's so tough, man. Because just like Mo said, I mean, I think even Jordan Walker, I think Juan Soto is one of those guys that he might be worth it. And what's so unique about this trade, and I was trying to look this up earlier, like when's the last time a superstar player this early in their age became available in a trade? And it really was Miguel Cabrera was the last one.
But Juan Soto broke in at 19 years old,
19,
which is
20.
But he's like
World Series MVP at 21.
Yeah, which is but either way, my point is he came in earlier than ever. You're right than normal. He got to the MLB faster than the average player.
Right.
So yeah, you're not going to find a comp for that, right? It's going to be really, really difficult to find a comp. For me, I don't see Juan Soto as a must-do for the St. Louis Cardinals. It is like a need versus a want, right? We don't need him because our outfield is fine, but he is, in theory,
It hasn't been fine this year.
Now,
granted, there's
you're right.
injuries and other things.
Lots of injuries, but I think we have a lot of prospects for the outfield, and we have 3 decent outfielders that the Cardinals lack. Right. So need versus want, we don't need an outfielder, but would we take an outfielder that is one of the top 10 players in the MLB? Yes.
Oh yeah, I would say top 5.
Yeah,
even.
top 5 players in the MLB. Will we take him? Yeah, we'll take him, but at what cost? To me, you get this deal done.
It's going to take at least 5 or 6 players.
Without
for just Soto.
But without mortgaging right now, because the goal to sign Juan Soto should be what? To win a World Series in the 2.5-year window before.
And that's what's unique. This
isn't
isn't a half-season rental. Yeah. This isn't just a 1-year rental. It's 2.5 seasons.
It's a longer chunk than
even
normal.
If he walks, depending on who you give up, might be worth it. And
Absolutely.
And that's what's tough. It's like if you told me right now, hey, if Jordan Walker's included in the deal, but you're also going to sign Juan Soto to a 12-year deal, I'd be like, yeah, do it right now. I mean, I would. I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. But because we don't have that, we don't know. That's where it's like it's tough. So that's another scenario. If he walks in 2.5 seasons, I don't know if I would want Jordan Walker in that deal.
But I also think there's 0% chance the Cardinals sign him. I think it is a
unless
window.
it was less about the money for him and more about just not wanting to be with the Nationals.
I think that it is as well. But I still don't see the Cardinals. The biggest contract that Cardinals have ever given up is Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah,
and it's
160.
Yeah, it's not.
Even that was a hometown discount for
Goldie.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Cardinals will ever sign him. And I think that they're doing this for a 2.5-year window to have Goldie and Arenado in their prime.
which would be amazing.
Right. And I think that's the goal. I think
But
that
you
would be the
still
real
need
goal.
pitching.
Yes.
But here's my thing. If we don't, and everyone's saying, well, we need pitching. Yes. But on the flip side of this, how many times has Max Scherzer or David Price or name top pitcher been available and we don't go get them or we don't get it done? So it's not like we're going this offseason and going to get Max Scherzer or we're going to get Jacob deGrom. That's not going to happen either. So I'm like, at least this would be exciting.
I think the Cardinals are more likely to spend a lot of money on someone that plays every day. I think that's a big Mo.
Like Juan Soto.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's a big MO, right, of his is not to spend the money on huge dollars on a guy that plays every 5 days. They're willing to spend the money on the superstar every single day.
Right.
And I think that he's proven that. They've proven that. The St. Louis Cardinals have proven that with the offer they gave Pujols 11 years ago.
Yeah.
With the money they've taken on with Arenado, the money they've taken on, they've done with Matt Holliday and those guys. I mean, I think Matt Holliday was the biggest contract ever for the Cardinals before Goldie signed. So, yeah, but the absolutes for me is don't deplete everything right now because you still have that 2.5-year window that you want to win in. I think that's the main goal. So how can you not deplete that window right this moment and not deplete the window in 3, 4, 5 years from now as well?
There's just so many scenarios.
There are. But to me, I say no Jordan Walker. No, you don't have Jordan Walker in the deal. You don't have Nolan Gorman in the deal. Besides that,
let me ask you this. What if Jordan Walker was in the deal, but we still have Gorman and Dylan Carlson?
I would rather.
Would that still be worth it to you?
No, I would rather lose Dylan Carlson than Jordan Walker because Dylan Carlson is being replaced by Juan Soto.
Right.
Jordan Walker is mortgaging your future if Goldie is retiring in 2 years, or if he walks or goes away or whatever.
They don't re-sign him.
Don't re-sign him. Jordan Walker is going to be the first baseman or the DH, right? In 2 years, that's where he's going to fit in. They're not like the same position. If this was Jordan Walker is a true right fielder, which he can play, right? But if he was a right fielder and that's where he was going to be for the St. Louis Cardinals, then Juan Soto would be blocking him from making his way. But he's not. Jordan Walker has other avenues to be able to make this team.
Yeah. Well, in my thought scenario there is if you do Carlson and Gorman, then odds are you're trading, like I said, Walker would be the deal. Either Tyler O'Neill or Harrison Bader. I would assume they probably would want O'Neill over Bader would be my guess offensively. But maybe Mason Wynn isn't in that trade either. So we talked about that. If Walker's in, maybe Wynn's out. You don't do this trade if Walker and Mason Wynn are both in it. That would just be nuts.
I would agree.
But that's a guy, if they're that high on him, maybe he's the future shortstop and maybe, Tommy Evans back at second or he's rotating around again or Nolan Gorman's mainly DHing. Maybe Juan Yepez is in the deal. I don't know. I mean, the tough thing or the good thing with this is the Cardinals have prospects right now that not until this year have been higher.
Right.
So like Juan Yepez is already
his ceiling is now.
Yeah, it's already
Brendan Donovan,
already 24.
His ceiling might be right now.
280th something pick.
Right.
So him, Yepez, guys like that. I mean, even Alec Burleson has kind of come out of nowhere a little bit more this year. So like those are guys you have high value for that you weren't counting on having.
Even Gomez in the minors has higher value than he ever has before.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: would you include? I'm not going to say this person. Would you trade? In a trade, would you have Tyler O'Neill? Would you be willing to let go of Tyler O'Neill?
Yeah, I think so. Mainly because of and maybe the Nationals are sitting there saying, yeah, we're not going to do that, but because of the injury issues.
Right.
I mean, we saw what he can do and he's almost fully healthy. And it looks like it could be really good. Like 30-30, 40-25, 30 stolen bases, 40 home runs. But he hasn't been that this year. He has not been healthy at all.
So Travis Swindle said, don't trade Molina or Bader. So would you trade Harrison Bader?
I think I would. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I love the Gold Glove. I know he's a fan favorite. He's doing better offensively this year, but I mean, it's Juan Soto.
Yeah,
that's the thing with this. It's just like we talked about. And you said, Juan Soto broke in at 19 years old in 2018, 116 games, 22 home runs.
Right. At 19 years
406, old. A 406 OBP at 19 years old. 2019 only got better. That was his best
year.
season.
It was 19.
34 home runs, 110 RBIs in 150 games at 20 years old. 21 years old, or actually that was 2019 at 20. He finished ninth in MVP. They won the World Series that year. So look, the thing with me on this is like this is a once in a lifetime thing that a guy this good, this young is available this early. People are calling him the modern Ted Simmons for the way that he hits, the way that he gets on base. I mean, right now he's got like 78, 79 walks compared to like 50 strikeouts. I mean, he walks more than he strikes out every year, which is unheard of in today's game, while still hitting bombs, while still hitting great with runners in scoring position, like all the things. I mean, the only knock on him might be that like he's an okay fielder.
Right. He's not a great fielder. He's
which,
not.
Given everything else, I think he'd be okay with.
The Cardinals don't like to lack in defense.
No, but again, Dylan Carlson has showed he can play center field totally fine.
So my question is, would you let Dylan Carlson go?
Would be hard for me. Not want it if Walker's in the deal too. I think if Walker's in the deal too, I do not want. So it's either way, if Carlson's in the deal,
so it's
I
one
don't
or the
want,
other.
Yeah, both in. I don't.
What about
that,
two outfielders?
Because you forget Dylan Carlson's the same age as Juan Soto.
Right.
He's actually a few days older, I think, or younger, but they're both 23.
According to the MLB trade simulator, Dylan Carlson is the highest valued player on the St. Louis Cardinals.
Switch hitter. We've got him for a lot more years.
He is young, the control the Cardinals have, and the upside. That's why he's the highest valued player that the Cardinals have, is because of contract is so cheap right now.
Yeah.
Obviously he's in arbitration for multiple years, and he's young, and the upside is high. So would you give up two of the current outfielders in a deal?
I would do Tyler O'Neill, Juan Yepez. If you wanted to count him as an outfielder, he's been playing outfield. Newt, so that's the thing. Yeah, they need to pick either between Newt or Alec Burleson. I mean, they haven't called Burleson up this year because he's not on the 40-man, and they act like trying not to get people on the 40-man and off is like this crazy, thing. So you need to pick one or the other there. So yeah, I would say like O'Neill, Burleson, Yepez. If it's not Walker,
but you're open to all those. So what about would you trade Tommy Edman?
We haven't even talked pitching. They're going to want pitching too.
But how would you trade Tommy Edman? Would you allow him to be in the deal? Not saying who else is in the deal, but would you be willing to lose Tommy Edman in the deal?
It's an if thing for me.
Yeah,
if Nolan Gorman isn't in, but Brandon Donovan isn't in,
singularly,
I think I would want to keep Edman. I'd rather have.
You've changed.
I would rather have Donovan or maybe even Gorman in over Edman. I
would
love
agree
Gorman.
with that.
I think he's got a high ceiling.
I'm a big Tommy Edman fan, but I'm taking Gorman over Edman.
Yeah, I mean Edman's value is in the speed.
Yeah,
his on base percentage is better this year, and they can play literally everywhere except first base and catcher.
So you're willing to give up Donovan then, obviously.
Yeah.
Are you willing to give up? So, we're going to leave the corners. We're going to keep Arenado and Goldie. They don't want their contracts anyways.
No.
Are you willing to give up Gorman?
Again, if Walker's, I mean, it's got to be one of the other.
See, I am I don't want to give up Tommy, but I would be willing to. Like that's
and
like
I think the Cardinals can sweeten this deal with Liberatore, with Zach Thompson. We haven't even talked about the pitchers. And look, I know that those are two of like our best pitching prospects right now, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't been very impressed with what I've seen with Matthew Liberatore. Now I know it's really early. Yeah. Like these guys can pan out later, but he reminds me a lot of who was it that we traded for Arenado? This is the main pitcher involved. The lefty. I cannot remember the top of my head. He's been doing nothing with the Rockies. Now, granted, he's in Colorado, so it's
my gosh. Gomber,
yes. Yeah. The way that Liberatore looks reminds me a little bit of Gomber.
And Austin Gomber.
Yes, Austin. And Gomber was pretty good for us for a year and a half. I mean, he had some good starts. He had some good bullpen relief, and I mean, he's a little bit more of a sinker guy than Gorman. But Gorman, they similar to me because they both don't throw hard. They're under 95 most of the time, both of them. They have to spot up to get there. Now, obviously, Liberatore's got Gomber on. He's got that curveball. He's got a pretty nasty curveball. But he just hasn't impressed me too much. I mean, Zach Thompson has impressed me more this year than Matthew Liberatore
Zach Thompson has looked.
But I would
better.
I would put either of them in the deal.
I would say, look, here's where I really sit with it. One starting outfielder can go. Doesn't matter if it's Carlson, and I think it has to be Carlson when you start talking about this conversation because of his value when you talk about it. So I am fine with one starting outfielder to go, and any pitcher on the including Liberatore and Zach Thompson as prospects, even though they're on the roster.
Or what about Jack Flaherty?
Yeah, he has no value.
You can't say he has no value.
He doesn't have any value. Like his value.
You don't think if they threw him in with top prospects, that they would be
is lower now than it has.
Let me ask you this: do you think the Nationals would rather have Jack Flaherty or Matthew Liberatore?
Yeah, I would assume Flaherty.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just
I would
the name
assume.
stance. You still think about 2019. You still think about how good he is when healthy. Now, I don't think the Cardinals would do that. But I mean, if it swung the deal to them,
yeah,
maybe. I mean, he hasn't been on the mound.
But the Cardinals shouldn't, in theory, because he's literally at his lowest valued point ever.
Right.
He's never been.
But he's also gone in like 2.5 years or 2 years.
Yes. Yeah, I'd be fine with it. I mean, I don't look.
I'm sure Mo would do it.
Look, only person they're not trading only person they're not trading on the pitching staff is Wainwright. Right. Everyone else is available.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Wainwright, he's the only one you're not trading. It doesn't matter. I mean, even Miles Michaelis, they would listen.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
The Nats wouldn't do it because of his contract.
Exactly. He's making too much money, and they're trying to shed contract. They're trying to shed the money, so it wouldn't make sense.
They can take Dakota Hudson. Do they want Dakota Hudson?
I get his autographed ball now. Now I need all.
You've got Gorman. You got a Gorman bat, a Hudson ball.
Yeah,
and then they're both gone in 2 weeks.
That'd
be
just awful. But yeah. So that's I don't just one outfielder I'd be willing to give up. They can have pretty much any prospect. I just would want to hold on to Gorman if you're going to call him a prospect, but I don't think he's a prospect anymore. He's here.
I mean, he's still. He's still. He's only been up for.
And I want to keep Walker. I think beside that.
Yeah,
I'm fine. Now, if we talk about at the beginning, we talked about if we're talking about with Patrick Corbin or without Patrick Corbin, it really changes the whole deal of what's about. I think you can get away with Patrick Corbin and not give Walker.
For sure,
Gorman.
not both. For sure, not both. I mean, I still think it would take one of those three, but I can tell you that I mean, I feel pretty confident in saying if the Cardinals come and say we're going to take Corbin's contract, that they're not for sure not giving up Jordan Walker.
Right.
I mean, that's a non-starter.
Yeah. If we're taking on that, it's not happening.
But I do think it would still take one of Wynn or Gorman, and then maybe an outfielder, pitching prospect or two. Yeah, it definitely wouldn't take 5 or 6 players at that point. It shouldn't.
And Wynn is exciting player, and when he was in the Futures game, he threw the ball 101 mile an hour over, which is exciting, but he doesn't hit home runs. Neither does Tommy. Right. So if you
don't want two very similar
so
up the middle.
You have Donovan, Tommy, and Sosa and Wynn, right? So if you trade Gorman, those are your options up the middle. They don't hit home runs. Gorman is the only bopper on the roster and in the prospects that plays up the middle.
Right.
So I think Gorman would be like one of the worst way.
But now that I think about it, I mean, the Cardinals had some really good years with it was Ozzie Smith at shortstop. Wasn't Tommy Hurt second with him? And neither of those guys were. Now, Tommy Hurt was a really good RBI guy. I think one year he had 8 home runs and 110 RBI.
Well,
but
even back to
the game's different now. Yeah,
and Fernando Vina at second. Yeah. It was small hitting guys, but now we're talking this era. It's about hitting home runs, right? Seth Teal asked, "What's the legit chance to get Soto?"
What do you want to do? Maybe a percentage?
Yeah. What do you think if you were gonna give a percentage? What chance would you give the Cardinals acquire Juan Soto?
So the tough thing about this is Mike Rodriguez, Mike Deportes, MLB insider, broadcaster and analyst for the Cubs and White Sox in Spanish. So this guy is kind of similar to their Benji Molina, if you want to comp it that way with us. But he had the Javier Baez deal this offseason before anybody, was credited by John Heyman for that. So fairly reputable source. He did say today that, according to my sources, several teams, Mets, Yankees, Cardinals, Dodgers, White Sox, are preparing offers to try to take Juan Soto from the Nationals. That's a tough thing. If we're competing with those other teams, I mean, how often have we finished second to the Red Sox?
We're so close. Yeah.
The Red Sox to, to David Price, or the Yankees with Giancarlo Stanton. Now, Stanton, a deal in place with the Giants. So did the Yankees. He chose the Yankees' fault. But it's tough. I mean, the Dodgers and the Yankees seem
let's-
like they would be ones to say, well, you know, if the Nats say, well, the Cardinals got the deal right now, like we're giving you one last chance, they would go over the top.
Well, let's say first odds Juan Soto gets traded this season.
I'd put that at 50% right now, which I feel like is pretty high, and it maybe even higher. And it sounds silly, but I would say mainly because of what just came out the other day about them not chartering him a flight. I mean, that just sounds like the relationship
is
is
soured,
decimated. Yeah, like it's very like that's pretty petty. So,
which makes it sound like they'd be willing to move him for less.
well, and if you really
Right?
think that, well, for less, but also if they really think that, you know, if they know he's not going to sign with them at all, right now is the best trade package
Right.
you're going to
As
get.
soon as you can.
Yeah, I mean, his down year right now is he's batting 250,
Right.
but he's still got 20 home runs. He's still OBP's over 400. You know, like it's. I mean, this is the time to do it for them. So for the Cardinals, I will say, if it's just Juan Soto, like 10% chance,
10%.
and that's probably pretty high. If they're the team that's like, we will take on Patrick Corbin's contract, which is another thing I don't see them doing because DeWitt doesn't like to take on that much money. But if it's that, I would say maybe 40%.
That's high. You know,
I mean, if they're really willing to do that, and I just don't, I just don't see them doing that because I think we talked about it. What Patrick Corbin's owed 25 million next year, and then his last year of his deal in 2024, he's owed 35 million.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
That's terrible.
Maybe we can kick DeYoung back to him to alleviate some of that.
DeYoung doesn't make that much.
He's making like
10,
11 or 12
right? Yeah,
next year.
It's not. I mean, yeah,
It would help a little bit.
yeah. You know, I think about what the odds that the Cardinals get Juan Soto. I just, you know, it's not going to happen.
I just that if you're competing with the Dodgers and the Yankees, those two teams are always willing to go past that puke point, right? That we talk about. The Cardinals never are.
You know, but why did no one else get Nolan Arenado? He would gone to LA if you gave him the chance to go anywhere.
Snuck in and fleeced that before any team could like really be like, what is happening? It just seemed so crazy.
I saw someone on Twitter say the Cardinals don't have the prospects. They're not in it.
That's absurd. We got 7 in the top 100.
That's what I think is
the farm system's better than it's ever been.
I don't think it's better than it's ever been. I think the top half is better than it's ever been. So I think that the Cardinals have had this problem for a couple of years is they have really good guys and then they have the rest.
Right.
And I think that is different than all the other teams that are going to be involved in it is the Cardinals can come in and get the deal done if they wanted to tomorrow. Is what Bill DeWitt and John Mozeliak are willing to do.
Right. Especially DeWitt on taking on the Corbin contract.
Can you flip that money, you think, or no? I mean, is that something you could, you take on that trade and you're able to and trade him somewhere and you're willing to take on half the money to that next team?
Let me ask you this. So, I mean, we don't care about the money either way.
Right.
It's not our money.
He's a billionaire, so it doesn't matter.
But, I'm thinking.
And the payroll is only at 146 or something, something stupid.
And there's a lot of names that come off. We were talking about some of that. Somebody had mentioned in a slew of tweets. I've been just all over Twitter today, going through this, but there's a lot of money that's coming off not too far from now. So I think for me with Patrick Corbin, because I get to thinking, well, if we could get J.A. Happ and John Lester doing what they did for us last season with Mike Maddox and with Yachty and them, I mean, who's to say we couldn't turn around Patrick Corbin? I mean, he's still only 33, so right. I mean, the tail end of his prime, but 2019 he was great for them when they win the World Series. So maybe they pushed him too hard, maybe too many innings. Maybe that's part of why 2020, 2021, 2022 this year he's just been knocked around a lot. He's been one of the worst starters. But if Mike Maddox could get that much out of Lester and J.A. Happ, who's to say we couldn't out of Patrick Corbin? And then maybe you're killing two birds with one stone there if he's your 3 or 4 guy in a rotation for the next year or two. Now, I still don't know that would be worth it for the money, but I mean, maybe that's part of like what most coming with the DeWitt is, hey, like we think we got around this last year or two and get some worth out of him, and then you're getting pitching too. Then you're getting pitching help. So I don't know if that's what their thoughts are, but I mean, it's one of those things to consider when taking on Patrick Corbin. And I really don't think the Cardinals have much of a shot at getting Soto if they don't take on the Corbin contract. And mainly because of that puke point with the prospects. I don't think they're going to go over the top. The Yankees, their top prospects, this his name, Gorman or something like that. He's the big shortstop prospect there. Number 8 on the top 100 list. You know who number 7 is? Jordan Walker.
Yeah.
So like that's their number 1 guy, and they're already talking about how Cashman's probably gonna be like, yeah, take him, because they're just willing. They've always been willing to go over that point. And guess what? The New York Yankees have Aaron Judge very likely walking this offseason. So you think
it would make sense?
You think they're pretty motivated?
I thought that watching the All-Star game last night, it makes sense for them to trade for him. And
you don't think they wouldn't give him 450, 480, 500 million when he's 23 and Judge is already 30?
And they'll be fine with letting Judge walk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, Judge, thank you. They win a World Series this year because they get Juan Soto.
And I hate to say that because none of us like the Yankees, but it makes they the most sense of any team given their situation with Aaron Judge.
Well, I put in that simulator, you can, put your own trade, and everyone has their own values and all that thing. So whenever I get just Juan Soto's value is 176.8 by himself. 176.8. Our highest valued player on our team is Dylan Carlson, like we talked about, at 77.5. I mean, think about that.
Wow.
That's just like, it's because contracts and age and all those things. But if you give this cleared and validated, but if you give up Burleson, Carlson, Donovan, Liberatore, and Wynn for Juan Soto, you do that today, right now?
Say that again one more time.
Burleson, Carlson, Donovan, Liberatore, Wynn.
For just Juan Soto.
Just Juan Soto.
I mean, maybe so, man. I mean, that might be worth it even for just the 2.5 years.
I'd say do that right now. I mean, you got to think about Burleson's blocked.
And I like Carlson. I think he's going to be really good. But
I do. I think Carlson is really good.
What Juan Soto right now. And the sky's the limit. He's only 23.
He just doesn't have any, you have to, I think, Carlson. There's no value anywhere else except Dylan Carlson when it comes to outfielders. I think that I can look it up, but I think that O'Neill is like 28, ranked 28 points. And you're talking about Dylan Carlson is 77.5. And then I think that Bader is like 15. Like
Bader is partly, he's not offensive based.
He's also 28.
He's already 28.
28 years old.
That. He's already been with the team like 4 or 5 years now on the team. Tyler O'Neill's 27 and Bader's 28. So that's where Bader's value comes down a little lower, arbitration wise and everything. I will say this about Mo, that I have some trust in Mo in these bigger deals. Cardinals don't make a ton of bigger deals, but when they have, I feel like he has knocked them out of the park.
He's got great value.
Yeah, Nolan Arenado one's still early, but nobody's missing those players.
No.
Paul Goldschmidt. Tell me who you can remember out of the Paul Goldschmidt trade besides
Carson Kelly,
who's been serving. He's been fairly good for them.
Yes.
He's had a year, but he hasn't done anything that would have blown us out of the water. Catcher.
Yes.
And Luke Weaver.
I forgot about Luke Weaver, but yes.
You forgot about him because he's been injured or he's been awful. One of the two.
Well, you can look at that other way and say Tyler O'Neill trade, Marco Gonzalez, right?
That was a pretty fair, even trade.
And he's played very well, and they're really good this year.
Yeah.
In Seattle. I mean, so the Cardinals don't make the playoffs without Tyler O'Neill last year, so he was very serviceable last year. But this year he's non-existent. So
the only bigger trade that Mo has missed on, and he jokingly talked about this at Blogger Day, was the Marcell Ozuna trade.
Yeah.
With Sandy Alcantara.
He'd love to have him starting every fifth day.
Yeah, he said I think he said when you're at the trading table, like you're playing poker. And sometimes you're going to lose, and you don't think I wouldn't want Sandy every fifth day shoving that? That'd be great. And so, but that's the one out of all these years. You even go back to the Jason Hayward trade. I remember thinking, man, we're trading Shelby Miller for Jason Hayward. Shelby Miller was awful.
He didn't do much after that.
He signed a deal, I think 2 or 3 years after leaving the Braves with the Cubs, and couldn't couldn't even get to the majors out of their minor leagues with the Cubs. He's not even playing anymore. Like Mo has any remotely big trade, even the Holiday one. You go back to Matt Holiday, Brett Wallace, dude in the league for 4 years.
I was worried about that one.
Yeah,
Brett Wallace was the first base future.
Yeah. So if there's one thing I will say about Mo, if it's a big trade like this one, the big ones,
he does well.
I trust him on them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't trust him signing relievers, but I trust him on big trades
or free agency.
Which might be, I mean, yeah, it could be partly DeWitt saying, no, I'm not letting you spend this much.
But, I am usually the guy that says prospects, who cares? You never know.
That's where I'm at with Soto, man.
It's
to
baseball.
A degree.
It's baseball. How many times do these guys never make it? I was talking about this, I think maybe this weekend we talked about it. When I went to the All-Star game when it was in St. Louis in the Futures game, the Cardinals had multiple dudes on the game in that game, and I got their signatures, and I have their autographs in one of my cases.
Can't even remember who they are. I don't even know.
I had to go back and dig deep on who they were. They never even made it out of AAA. Like, the odds that the guys actually make it somewhere is very, very slim. So I am usually like, give me the proven guy right now over what could be in years to come. But my only issue with that in this trade would be Gorman is here. He should not be a part of that trade, right? So you look at the other pieces. Liberatore, fine. When he's not
the
a
Cardinals
hitter,
just drafted, and this isn't an overrating, like overestimating, like legitimately like 17 left-handed pitchers this draft. Like an insane amount.
So yes, maybe they did that because they knew they're about to deplete their pitching staff. But and then my only other thing is Jordan Walker, Mo, and all the other scouts and everyone out there says Jordan Walker's bat has not, listening to him hit, has not been like that since two players, Oscar Tavares and Albert Pujols.
Yeah, that's big praise. And Mo jokingly said, he's like, look, it wasn't rocket science drafting Jordan Walker. Our scouts saw him hitting the ball
6'6",
110, 115 miles per hour exit velocity in high school. That's probably going to play.
Right. So that's where I am with it. As long as you're keeping it.
But still, you don't even, you never know. Like Chris Bryant, he's got a lot of Chris Bryant comps. Chris Bryant, where's Chris Bryant at right now? And he won. He helped the Cubs win the World Series in 2016. Cubs will tell you a million times over, they don't care how the next 100 years go. That was worth it. And I would understand why their fan base would feel that way. But he is not pinned out to be that, multi-year MVP, multiple MVP guy. He just hasn't been.
To hold off. Remember, they held him out.
Juan Soto is that type of guy.
Yes.
And honestly, he probably should have won the MVP last year. But
let's say the Cardinals give up overpay. Gorman, Walker, win. Overpay, right? That'd be like worst case scenario probably, right? If they give up all three of those. If the Cardinals win the World Series the next 2.5 years,
nobody's going to care. I don't think anybody's going to, because here's the other thing. You have 2 more drafts between now and then of getting more players in and things like that. So,
and players are getting to the MLB faster than ever before.
Yes. Which is due in part to COVID and needing arms and stuff like that. But yeah.
But also the athleticism of these kids is higher than ever before too.
Especially the pitchers throwing over 100.
Right. And so that's the difference really. But even if it broke news tonight that the Cardinals traded Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, and Mason Wen for Juan Soto, I would be upset. But if they win a World Series in 2.5 years,
or this year,
within the next, in that Juan Soto contract, I don't care.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Now, is that hurting the future? Now that could be a question. If we're under 500 in 5 years now, from now because of it, is that worth it?
And we didn't extend Soto.
Right. And you don't extend Soto. Yeah. Then you're going crap. Because I don't want to be that franchise.
I don't want to be the Cubs.
I don't want to go up and down. I don't want to be the Nationals. The Cardinals should be in it every single year. They should be playing. They should be winning the division every single year. And they should be making deep runs in the playoffs every year. Yeah. So if doing that depletes everything that you're planning on doing, then you can't do it.
Right.
Even if you win the World Series, it's still depleting right now and in 5 years from now. So if they win a World Series in 2.5 years and it doesn't deplete everything you're doing in the future, then I would do it. I mean, I have just come to that realization as I say that now. If you win the World Series, it doesn't matter.
Right. Let's switch a little bit to probably a more realistic trade deadline, which is what Mo told us. We need innings. We need pitchers. Give me a couple names. Somebody asked earlier on the chat. Let me give a shout out. John
Yeah.
John
Yes.
Bradge. Again, if I'm
Yeah.
butchering your last name, I'm sorry, man. What about Noah
I
Syndergaard?
think I can put this. Look, there it is.
Nice.
Do you see it like that? Look at that. It's fancy.
Yeah, that's great.
John Bradger.
That's a
what
name.
about Noah Syndergaard?
That's a name that's out there. The Angels supposedly. I mean, you talk about getting star players and not doing anything, not sniffing the playoffs.
You know what I think?
I saw someone say, by the way, I think it was Ben Fredrickson in one of his columns. Ben Fred, he was talking about it. It would make way more sense for the Cardinals to throw all our prospects to go get Shohei Ohtani. I agree with you, Ben. I don't think that the Angels are going to do that.
Can we talk about that briefly before we get to Noah? I put a mock trade together for that. When you're talking about the value, right? We talked about Soto's value is 176, I think is what it was. I think that was right. 176.8 is his value. You know Shohei's value?
Shohei's got to be over 200.
107.6. All it would take in this.
Why? Is it age and year?
His contract is up after
He's already
next year.
28. Okay,
his age is higher.
1 year rental.
It's a 1 year rental. So you know what it takes to get him? Carlson, win.
I mean, that might be what the trade scenarios the machine's spitting out to you.
I understand what you're saying. And it validated, right? Because the points, everyone is assigned points based on all those things. Years of control, age, how much money they're owed, et cetera, et cetera. Ceiling, right? All those things. I would do that yesterday.
Oh, I would do way more than that.
Carlson win for show. Guess what? We need pitching.
He does both.
And we need a left-handed bat. Yes.
That'd be fantastic.
Are you kidding me? Yes, absolutely.
By the way,
and he might, they should trade him.
Right.
The Angels suck. They were one of the best teams ever early on in the season. They were one of the best teams.
The reason I don't think they will is because they need pitching. And he's the only good pitcher that they have.
But he's going to walk.
And unless they give him a crap ton of money.
No, I don't think it matters. I think he wants to, who wants to go there? Who wants to go anywhere and just lose?
Right. Yeah.
I think Albert Pujols made one. I think Mike Trout has made one playoffs.
Yeah.
Since he's been in the league.
I get it, man. That you get your money when you can. He got his money. Before we move on from the as we're moving on from the Juan Soto thing, I posted a poll earlier today.
Oh, I forgot. Let me take this. Sorry, John. We'll get back to you in a second. Let me take this off the screen. Get back to that.
The poll.
I forgot. I put it on Facebook as well.
Yes.
And it's different.
And we've gotten a pretty good amount of votes even in the last 5 hours. So the poll was, would you want the Cardinals to take on the rest of Patrick Corbin's contract, which is $24 million next year and $35 million in 2024, to get Juan Soto if it meant that Jordan Walker is not included in the deal? So this was 5 hours ago on Twitter. We've got over 250 votes. 93% say yes.
It is a runaway. So let me.
And I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you on that. Again, if we take on Corbin and it doesn't involve Jordan Walker, I think it's totally worth it. I think it's worth it even if Soto walks in 2.5 years, if we still have Walker.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
So I put it on Facebook as well, and it was much different percentage. It was way
Well, what's the demographic on Facebook?
Yeah, I was gonna say Facebook is an older demographic,
more traditional.
So they're probably more like
that's too much money,
right? They're probably more in the money factor. But guess what? It's not my money. It's Bill DeWitt's money,
that's right?
And he can afford it if he really, really wanted to. Maybe it delays the next phase of Ballpark Village. I don't know if you take on that money. But let's see, where is it? I can't find the Q&A that I put.
Percentages.
I can't find the percentage. It's
well, on the topic of you saying they can afford it, Jeff Jones, who covers the Cardinals as well, had a slew of tweets about, can the Cardinals afford this? He mentioned, it's fair to wonder if adding, say, $50 million next year and $70 million in 2024 in one deal for the Cardinals, which would include Juan Soto with arbitration and Patrick Corbin, is doable. Here's worth noting: Wainwright, Molina, Dickerson, McFarland, Pujols all fall off after this year. That's $37.5 million plus $2.5 million in buyouts to Carpenter and Carlos Martinez. That's $40 million next year off the books. Assuming he opts in, next year is the year the Rockies kick in $21 million more to cover Arenado.
Yeah. So I pulled that. I found it here.
Can they afford it? Yes. Don't let anybody tell you that Cardinals can't afford to take Patrick Corbin's contract. They can.
And Bill DeWitt is also worth $40
Well, that's what he mentioned too. This will all be happening in an environment when revenue should be stabilizing fully again in
Yeah.
2 years. The money's not nothing, but it shouldn't be an impediment. And like you said too, the new phases of Ballpark Village, everything ramping back up.
Look, how
they can afford it.
So I'll say this. So the yeses were 60% on the Facebook poll and 40%.
Still pretty high for
40% for no, but it's a big difference from 95%.
Oh yeah.
My thought was Mo Zaylock also mentioned, it was asked about moving the walls in.
Oh yes, they're doing their own study.
And they did wind current studies. How much does that cost? Is that a player worth of cost of wind current studies?
Probably not cheap.
Yeah, that's my thought as
imagine.
well. So if they have the money to spend stupid studies on wind currents and all this stuff, they got the money to go do whatever the hell they want. All right, let's get back to John. Let me pull this back up there. John
Noah
said,
Syndergaard. What do you think about
Noah
Syndergaard?
Yeah, so Noah Syndergaard. I think Noah Syndergaard probably makes the most sense for the St. Louis Cardinals for a pitcher, because the guys that we talked about, it's a weak starter market. Very weak starter market.
Trade-wise,
yes.
This season,
yes,
for sure.
It's very weak. So Monty, whatever you want to call him.
However you say it.
He is going to pitch this weekend, I do believe, after having his being pulled after one inning last time.
Minor injury there. Yeah.
He is going to cost more. Pablo
Lopez
is another good one, but he has multiple years of control.
Only 26, 25.
The ones that make the most sense, people want to say Madison Bumgarner, and Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard his contract is up this season, so it is a 60-game-ish rental. We're at 90 some odd games played.
Mo talked about that too. Trade deadline's different this year.
Yes, it's further back.
It's further back because of the lockout, so not near as many games that you're getting the player.
Yeah, so Madison Bumgarner is owed this year and $20+ million next year. So I think no way. I think Noah Syndergaard makes the most sense. It's a 60-some-odd game rental, and he's not been great like Noah Syndergaard was at one time, but he is a stabilizer for the St. Louis Cardinals.
He could be helpful. I mean, I think it's interesting. Even those two, Bumgarner and Syndergaard. Syndergaard had an ERA, I think, under 3.5 before July hit. His last 4 starts have been really rough. So he's sitting at 5-7 with a 4.00 ERA right now. A 99 ERA plus, which is like almost right at average. He's been about average this year. The thing that alarms me with him coming off a big injury, velocity's down for him. Is down quite a bit. But like you said, should take less prospects as half your rental. But the thing that gets me with Bumgarner, and again, like you said, similar to Corbin, although not near as bad, he's signed through 2024. So you would be taking on $23 million contract next year and a $14 million in 2024. But Bumgarner has a 3.83 ERA this year.
Bumgarner has been good in 2 years.
Here's my thing. Here's my thing with Bumgarner. What did Mo say that we needed? Innings eater. Who would you bank on more at eating innings and churning out quality starts, Bumgarner or Noah Syndergaard?
I'd rather have you out there instead of spending $20+ million over multiple.
We said that about John Lester too, but why
we did not say that. John Lester was a half a year rental.
He was a stopgap,
but there's no more contract left over.
Yes, but
if John Lester cost $20 million this year as well,
we wouldn't have done
$20 million the next year, they're never doing it.
You never do it.
No.
But you know what's interesting with Bumgarner? Take a guess. How old do you think he is?
I would assume he's 35 years old.
He just turned. No, he's 32.
32. Yeah. So
he'll be 33 in actually very soon, August 1st. So, but for me, when I think back to Lester, part of their interest in Lester was what was it? He had postseason experience. He was a guy that if they had made it
in the postseason for us.
Yes, if they had made it, they wanted his postseason experience. Who has legit postseason experience, like multiple World Series MVP? So that's another thing that I think that they care about too. I mean, I do, and also it doesn't hurt. Like Madison Bumgarner's pretty good friends with Adam Wainwright. Waino's joked about how those two get mistaken for each other because they look alike. But those two are going to be names I think you hear a lot with the Cardinals. Montas, I would be surprised if they go for him, mainly because of that injury he's dealt with.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest trade deadline acquisition in terms of pitchers is going to be Luis Castillo with the Reds, and you can count the Cardinals out of that. They're not trading him within the division to us.
And people talked about Tyler Mahle as well.
Yes, he starts against us this Sunday.
Does
actually,
he? Yeah.
Yep.
And
Martin Perez with the Rangers is another one.
do you think there's 0% chance that the Reds and the Cardinals trade? Now they've traded before, but you think it's 0 because they want to dump him, either of those guys or both of those guys, for something, right?
Right.
So
I think if they
got
do
nothing,
okay. So this is what gets me with the in division things, because there's another Cardinals account saying, well, it would make way more sense. Like the Cardinals don't need Juan Soto, they need Wilson Contreras.
Yeah.
They need a
That
catcher,
would
they need
never-
pitching. Okay. One, the last time the Cardinals and Cubs made a significant trade was 2002, and it still wasn't even like
it wasn't even.
anything significant. The last time Cardinals and Reds made a trade was 2006.
Yeah.
And that was the Cardinals purchasing Timo Perez, like a contract. So it wasn't even like a legit trade. So it never happens. It never happens. So I don't see it unless the Cardinals blow them out of the water with prospects. I don't see it on both ends. I don't see the Reds wanting him staying in the division against him. I don't see the Cardinals wanting to trade significant prospects who could be, performing against him for years. So no, I don't. I think it's 0% chance that we get Luis Castillo. I would like it if we did, depending on who we gave up. I think it's much more realistic with Bumgarner. I would say in terms of the most real at this trade deadline, like in order, I would say Bumgarner, Noah Syndergaard, Pablo Lopez, maybe if we, but he's going to take.
You think they're going to be willing to take on Madison Bumgarner's salary? We talk about how cheap they are.
Yeah, I don't know if they would take on the full salary. No. That's when I could see them trying to like flip DeYoung too to offset some of the costs.
Can we trade back for Sandy Alcantara? Is that available?
That would be fantastic.
Is that anywhere available? We'd give him some more prospects. Look how that turned out for him.
That would be. Here's a name, Kyle Hendricks.
Is he
another
with
Cubs guy? He's not. They're not going to trade him.
I was going to say.
I could see them trading
Liam Hendricks.
Yeah, I could see them trading him to us before Wilson Contreras for sure. But it's just there's not much out there starting pitching wise this deadline. Like, no, I mean, the number 3 and 4 names on this list are Pablo Lopez, who's having a really good year, and Martin Perez, who I'd never heard of, left-handed pitcher with the Rangers. 2.10 ERA though, 4-2, 31 years old. He's another big one that you're going to hear a lot of. Frankie Montas and Luis Castillo, in terms of cost, in terms of talent, are the biggest ones. But I mean, I thought Montas was like fit the Cardinal mold perfectly. You got another year or two of control for him. Has really good, analytics wise, everything, but he's had an injury, and that might scare them away.
That scares everyone. Yeah. So, do you think? People say we need pitching, we need pitching, we need pitching. But you know what? If we score 32 runs a game, who cares, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't. Pitching is less. What did we? What have the Cardinals? I keep saying we. What have the Cardinals needed? Is a good lineup, and the Cardinals lineup is better now than it has been in many years.
Oh yeah.
But in 2019, as I sat through the NLCS back-to-back games and almost got no hit in back-to-back games against those Washington Nationals, all I said was get us some hitting, and John Mozeliak has done that.
It wasn't Strasburg every time. It was 36-year-old Anibal Sanchez.
Yeah, and
throwing a near no-hitter.
Back-to-back games of just kill me. I mean, literally, it was so awful. And we just said, get us hitting. And they have vastly improved this lineup. Vastly. But there's still room for improvement if you want to go that route. So if I say go get Juan Soto, and you know
so
what?
Now you're changing on me.
No, I get it if
I love it.
Without the huge, significant loss in the right now and the future,
Yes.
I'm fine with it.
There's a way to do it. You have to. I mean, I just said it. This is once in a lifetime that a player of this caliber, this young,
it's kind of like Mike
is
Trout.
going to be available.
It's kind of like Mike Trout. You figure it out. Because actually, I take it back to this offseason. Our biggest need was a shortstop, and the Cardinals didn't do it.
Well, and honestly, it was so even the offseason we traded for Arenado. What was the biggest need? pitching.
Right.
They did nothing. They brought back Wainwright. That was it. And they banked on bounce backs from Michaelis and Hudson. Did not happen last year with Michaelis. Now, to their credit, not even to their credit, they owe him the money. He's going to be with us either way. But Michaelis has been fantastic this year. And I hope that continues the last year or two of his contract. That would be great. That would go a long way with the pitching. But it burned them last year. This past offseason, would they need pitching? Now, they signed Steven Matz. That was like they signed a starter, but it hasn't worked out so far.
It's kind of like in the draft, a real draft, not a baseball draft, because you never know what's going to happen. Like the NBA draft or the NFL draft, maybe is a better scenario. You take what's best available right now because you don't know what you're going to need. You don't know what is going to be ahead of you. Right now, who's on your board? Juan Soto is now at the top of your board and is now best available. You go and get that because that's best available.
Best available for like the rest of probably Mo's tenure.
Right. you get the best available. And then you have, Noah Syndergaard and Madison Bumgarner.
You can still, that's what drives me nuts. That people say, "Oh, we need pitching."
They're not going to do it both. They're not going to.
You could still go get somebody.
They're going to go with who did Pujols face last night in the All-Star game? Paul Blackburn.
Oh, the A's pitcher you're telling me about, yeah.
That's who they'll go get.
And maybe look, those pieces help.
Yeah.
2011, who did we go get?
Yeah.
Jake Westbrook,
Octavio Dodell,
Edwin Jackson, big journeyman that just
solidified the bullpen.
And I do think Mo needs to do a little bit of shaking up the bullpen a little bit. Not as many arms as 2011, but I mean, that's a tough thing too. Like, I do agree we need starting pitching, and depending on who you go get, if it's a Montas or it's someone bigger in that room, it could help the bullpen too. If moving, who's a righty? Who's come into the bullpen lately that was not supposed to be a starter, but he's been pretty good? Palante, sorry, I just had a brain fart there. Palante been pretty good as a starter, but he was really good in the bullpen. So you go get a starter that can make the bullpen better too, moving him back. And now you've got Jordan Hicks in the bullpen, who's looked pretty good so far in the few appearances he's had. So I'm a little less worried about the bullpen now. But man, if you go get Juan Soto, they can still get somebody for pitching, or
I think they could make small moves if they still go get Juan Soto.
Call some other young guys up and mix and match and give them some chances.
All right, so I just put on the screen. First half grade. What do you give the Cardinals as a whole for the first half?
I would say probably a B or B plus.
That high?
I would say B at the lowest. And the reason I say that is because despite, like, it's not Mo's fault that Jack hasn't been healthy, right? It's not the team's fault. I think overall, the offense, especially the young guys, have come up and made some really big contributions to honestly to keep us afloat, because it could have been really bad in June and July. And now July was the end of June.
Yeah.
First week of July was pretty rough. Those 15 games in 15 days or something, all against above 500 teams, and we just got wrecked. Went like 5-9. Should have been 6-8. We blew that 6-run lead to the Dodgers. Should have won that series. But
the Braves,
they just whomped us.
They looked much better than that they are. But so
I think,
were you disappointed in the first half?
The last week or two for sure. Yeah. But I expected it.
They underachieved.
I think that, well, my B is probably tied to like the Brewers honestly helping us.
Right.
Because if
the Brewers were on pace to win 90 games or 95 games,
we'd be toast.
We'd be 6 games plus out.
Yeah, just like last year.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. And they couldn't take care of business against the Cubs, against the Pirates.
Teams they should,
The Giants swept them. Now the Giants are a more competitive team. And one of those they lost on a very controversial balk, which I'm not going to complain about it. But so they've kept us in it. I do think that, I hope this is one of those deadlines, though, that even though we're just half a game out, that Mo's like, but we should probably be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So I better do something. And that relationship between him and Jack does not seem great. So I really don't think he's counting on getting anything from him this year. And if that's the case, he's going to go hard after pitching. But again, you go get Juan Soto, you absorb Patrick Corbin's contract, Mike Maddox, Yachty, Waino, work with him, get him back to, a 3 or 4 starter. Like, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. I mean, worst case is he's terrible, and then you're just eating you're eating $50 million or whatever it is for the next 2 years, which would suck. But he'd be off the books. He'd be off the books the same time Soto would come off the books, unless you sign him long. He'd be off the books the same time that Goldie comes off the books, and all those other contracts come.
But we've been told for years, Carpenter's going to come off the books, and the Cecil deal is going to come off the books. And
didn't matter. We didn't go sign Bryce Harper. I will stand here till this day. I know you think he's overrated, but we wouldn't be worried about trying to get Juan Soto right now if we had signed Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper has played better these last 3 or 4 years with the Phillies than he did with the Nationals. He's already won another MVP. Like, I mean, he's another example of a team that you can't do it all on your own. Now, they went and made some big moves, and they've
underachieved big time.
And it's still their pitching and their bullpen. But that's a guy, like, all he would have cost you was money 2 or 3 years ago, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And now you're in this situation where,
the Nationals won in 19. He wasn't on the team, so that was his first year with the Phillies. So 19, 20, 21. This is 3.5 years. No, I just don't think he's a winner. I think that's a big part of it. Is Bryce Harper's just not a winner. MVP doesn't mean you're a winner. Mike Trout's been an MVP. He's not a winner.
Well, he could hit 3 home runs in a playoff game, but if the Angels give up 10 runs, it's not going to matter.
Ohtani and Trout do something special every single day, and they still lose,
which is sad.
Yeah,
sad to watch. Honestly, just get them both. Let's just get them both.
Just give me one of them. Just one is fine. I mean, I'm fine with that.
When you look at that though, with the Angels, the Phillies, it does make me thankful that we're at least in it every year. But I am getting to that point where I'm like,
do you think it's because of not the big contracts? Like, you think about these teams that go like this, the roller coaster of the Nationals, the Phillies, the Angels. They give out these big, like the Rondon contract is awful.
Oh yeah,
for the Angels. Yeah.
He's been injured.
He was amazing in 19. We're talking about that same Nationals team. Yep. He got paid because of that run, and that contract, he's done nothing to earn that contract.
Yeah.
So are those teams?
I think they're smart
about. Kind of like the Yankees haven't won since 2009.
Right.
It's kind of like the Dodgers didn't win since '82, until recently, because even though they have all this money to dole out, with the Cubs, they spend more money than anyone else over the last 100 years, and they only won one most recently. Because you have all the money doesn't mean everything.
The year that they won, what did they go do?
There was a lot of prospects, though, on those teams. A lot of young guys on those teams.
They went and traded for Mookie Betts. That was the year that they won, 2020. They went and traded for Mookie Betts that offseason before.
Which was crazy that I didn't think the Red Sox would ever or need to get rid of him.
Right. So similar in a way to Juan Soto, not quite as young.
Right. But you have to make moves. I completely agree. Yes. You have to make moves, but you can't get into bad contracts. No. How do you guarantee a really good contract? You can't.
I think part of the reason the Cardinals have been in it each year and haven't been making big moves is because they keep getting more value out of prospect guys that they draft than was anticipated, right? Tommy Edman, Brandon Donovan, Matt Carpenter. I mean, these guys that, they talk about the Cardinals devil magic. We joke about it. It's happened. We've seen it with so many guys randomly that just perform really well for us that were not high draft. Albert Pujols. I mean, I think that they there's a little bit of banking on that more. Oh, well, our scouts are so good, and our drafting department and development department is so good. Like, we're going to be competitive, and they've done that. They have been, especially pitching, but that's one that it hasn't worked really these last 2 or 3 years. Jack's been the only one that's kind of hit on the pitching. They don't have Carlos Martinez anymore, or at least those first 3 or 4 years of Carlos when he's really good. Wainwright into his career. Like, I mean, Chris Carpenter obviously been gone for a long time. They don't have that ace right now if it's not Jack. And so maybe what I'm trying to say is maybe, I would think that Mosaic would tell you the one move that they didn't make, and maybe DeWitt too, that they wish they would have is Max Scherzer. That's the one for me. Like, if you go get him, maybe we have another World Series between now. Maybe we win in 2013. Was he available then? I can't remember.
I don't remember
he
when
might
he
not have been available then.
But I think about that and think if they sign Albert Pujols in 2011 to his 10-year contract.
Do they keep Yachty and Waino too if we do that?
Right. What does it change? But do the Cardinals win more World Series post 2011?
At least maybe one more.
I think about the 13 run, right? Going to the World Series, that team is really different from the 2011 team.
Yeah. I mean, that team, it's still crazy to me to think that team made it.
You're not making the moves you made for that roster, probably.
No.
Because Carlos Beltran was on that.
That was just a perfect storm. I mean, that team was the best team in baseball hitting with runners in scoring position by far.
Right.
By far. We didn't have one
2 outs hits.
I don't
two
think
outs.
we had
I knew
one,
dudes were going home.
I don't think we had one player on that team who hit 30 or more home runs. Not one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of 20s, 25s.
I think Beltran was like 28, 29. He was close.
I think you're right. I think 29.
But we didn't have one.
Yeah.
That's insane, especially even more so today.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think the Cardinals win probably at least one more World Series. Is that worth what the miss on Albert's contract? Because
I don't know.
Albert has, been injured a lot, and he just hasn't. He still has hit 685 home runs in his career, so he obviously put in some work in the Angels uniform. But I think happens a lot when East Coast, they get lost. You don't see them every day on TV, so you don't really hear about them as much over in the East Coast and the Midwest like you would before. Well, we've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes.
Nice.
So I knew
had a lot to talk about.
I knew tonight was going to be long.
About a month.
I really knew tonight was probably going to be a long one. And I don't think our bullet points. What do we say we're going to discuss tonight? Is everything yet or no?
I think we hit most of it. Oh, you didn't get to talk about your interaction with Nolan Gorman.
Nolan Gorman. Wow. Yeah, John Mozeliak, Juan Soto, Cardinals first half,
kid.
meeting Nolan Gorman. So going back to Boston, I didn't even talk about going to Boston. I went to the Boston series. I was able to go. My wife and my son, who's like 20 months old, we went to the Boston series, and we got to go Fenway, multiple games. It was just awesome. Fenway is way better than Wrigley Field. Doesn't even come close.
Oh, I would imagine.
Fenway is like a mix of old and new, and they did the new really, really well. Like, it's just done really, really nicely. First game was the first game of the series when we sat near-ish behind home plate. Everyone was awesome. Red Sox fans are awesome. Cardinals lost that game. I had a good time. We toured the stadium, all that.
Nolan hit a home run that game, right? I think he did back-to-back.
Did he? I don't think so. Nolan Arenado. Yes.
Arenado, sorry, not
Nolan
Gorman,
Arenado hit one over the monster that game. Cardinals lost like 5-4. They tried to come back. Second night, it wasn't on the to-do list, and I was
convinced your wife.
I was just kept on pushing to, we'll walk by the stadium, one of those. And I picked up tickets at game time for $30.
Nice.
It's dead center field, pretty much. Dead center field, we're sitting for $30. People around us are amazing.
Which is still a unique look here, right? Because that center field wall is pretty high.
It is. And, going back to the monster, we toured the whole stadium and we got up on the monster. The monster is not near as high as I would figure the view.
Really?
It's a great view. It's kind of like sitting in the second deck at Busch,
Nice.
in the outfield. It's a good view. Like I thought it was going to feel really high, and it didn't. But
you feel like it was as high as like Mackland?
Yeah,
about that?
Similar,
Yeah.
Probably lower.
Lower?
Yeah, probably.
Nice.
Yeah, so it wasn't near as high as I expected it to be. But we sat in dead center field, and there's these people around us, and guys saying, "Hey, the Saturday uniforms, they look awesome." Talking about the Cardinals, asking why are there so many Cardinals fans here? Because there were tons.
Nice. Well traveled.
Tons of Cardinals fans. The first game, I heard chants of "Let's go Cardinals" all over the place, and in the night two that we were there was just tons and tons of Cardinals. It was crazy. So we wanted to be there.
If we win in 2004 and 2013, fans probably aren't as nice to you.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably right. They're like, especially 04. If they
Oh,
don't
yeah.
if they don't
After
turn
doing what they
that,
did to the
yeah.
Yankees and then losing to us,
Yeah.
oh, they would hate us
Yeah,
forever.
they probably love us because you gave us 2 of the world championships after not having
Still the
one for,
best Cardinals offense I think we'll ever see.
Oh, yeah, I
Unless we
agree.
go get Juan Soto.
Oof. Oh gosh. Yeah. 3 MVPs. Yeah, that'd be the Juan
Oh, yeah.
Soto, Goldie, and Nolan. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so we weren't even supposed to be at the game,
Right.
and a ball gets hit to center field. Nolan Gorman hits a bomb. Nolan Arenado hit one as well.
Yeah.
Nolan Gorman hits one to dead center field.
That was the blowout game. It was like 11 to something.
It was great. Oh,
Yeah.
it was after the game before we lost.
Yeah.
I mean, this game was like just awesome. Neil Diamond was there and sang "Sweet Caroline" on the screen.
Nice.
Everything. I mean, it was like, what is happening? Like, it was a very out of body experience. But this lady gets the ball, the Nolan Gorman home run. It bounces into her lap, and she said she's been going to games for 30 years, and this is the first ball she ever got. And these Boston, but what do they call them? Bostonians? Yeah, Bostonians are all around me, and they go, "What's your son's name?" It's like, his name's Marshall. And this guy, "Hey, give Marsh the ball! Give Marshall the ball! Come on, lady, give Marshall the ball!" They're just yelling in this awesome Boston accent about giving my son the ball. He gets the ball. We take a picture of it. I put it on Twitter. I did not tag anyone. Did not tag the St. Louis Cardinals. I did not tag Nolan Gorman. I tweeted Nolan Gorman's first home run in Fenway Park.
Yeah.
That night, lay in my bed in the hotel, and the St. Louis Cardinals messaged me.
Nice.
And it was just like, holy smokes. She said, Nora, who was the person who was our escort on the weekend, she said, "Hey, Nolan saw the picture, and he would like to sign that ball for your son," which was like, wow, cool. That's really awesome, right? Just,
right.
So then weeks later, it was this weekend, and we got to go down, and she took us down to the clubhouse, and we're waiting outside the clubhouse, and we're just waiting, hanging out, and it's not air conditioned outside the clubhouse. Like, that part is really hot that day.
Oh, yeah.
You were there. It was really hot that day.
103's 4 something index.
And so the guy, the clubhouse attendant says, "Hey, just come in here. It's cooler in here. My son is a little guy, and just come in here." And we come in there, and we transitioned, and my son did not like it for whatever reason, starts crying. At the moment he starts crying, the door opens up and Nolan Gorman walks out.
Nice.
And we're like, "Oh, Jesus." I'm like, "No, shut up."
Trying to calm him
The
down.
clubhouse has a baseball card, and it's a Fredbird. So he hands it to my son. My son loves Fredbird. So he just immediately changes.
Yeah.
He takes that card and gives it to Nolan Gorman. He hands it. Oh, I have pictures. Let's see if I share my screen here. Let's see. No Chrome tab. Sorry. There we go. So he literally hands it over to Nolan, and he then is when he's giving him a fist bump. But
Nice.
he's handing it over, and Nolan walks out with an autographed bat, which I was not expecting whatsoever. I don't know why.
One of his models, brand new
Victus. Whatever, what is that, right? Victus? Is that
Yeah.
Brand new bat. He signed it. And for whatever reason, that didn't even cross my mind. I mean, it wasn't even on my radar. Oh, here it is. Right there. It didn't even cross my mind that this is what he would do. I mean, my father-in-law said, "Did you get any swag?" I'm like, "Man, I didn't even think that." I thought he was going to sign the baseball that he
a couple minutes.
got. And he wrote to Marshall, "Always follow your dreams, Nolan Gorman." And I was just like, wow. Like, it was really, really awesome.
Good kid.
Yeah. Oh, just unbelievable.
He's going to be really good for the Nationals.
Yeah. Jesus.
The next couple.
Oh, no. It was really awesome. He signed the bat. I couldn't believe it. I was like, my son is 20 months old. He does not get any of it.
He'll remember later through the pictures.
Yeah. When I tell him all about it, and going over it, I asked Nolan, there's my son with Fredbird. I had to go down the field too. But I asked Nolan, I said, I was at the game when Nolan's first career home run, and that Libertor got his first win. And I said, "I have that ticket stub. Do you mind signing it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll sign that for you." And I pulled it out. He signed it. And I said, "How was that getting your first win, your first home run, and Libertor's first win?" He goes, "It was really cool."
Man, a few words.
Man, a few words.
Yeah.
It was really cool. That's about all I had to say about it. It was really, really cool. And I asked him if he's in the lineup today. He said, the lineup wasn't out yet. He came in and pinched it for later for a hurt Sosa. What else? What else did I tell you about that day? Oh, there we are with my wife, my son, and Nolan Gorman. He was just, he was really, really. He signed the ball as well, and he just was super nice.
Humble kid.
He was just super nice. I'm 5'9". He doesn't look towering over me by any means.
He's 6'1".
Yeah, I think he's listed like 6'3", I think, but
Baseball Reference is showing 6'1".
all right. Well,
they're showing him at 210 though. He doesn't look that big.
He wasn't super jacked.
Yeah.
He wasn't just like this ginormous guy.
Just nuts for how far he's hitting the ball.
And as you can see, he's holding a bat in his hand there. And my son and he pretty much had the same outfit on: red cap, red shirt, navy shorts. My son has a Goldie shirt on, but
need the Goldie autograph.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just, and then it's down to the field. We got to go on the field again. My son
saw a few media folks too.
Saw Ricky Horton and
nice.
Claiborne and Rooney. I asked Rooney about getting back in the broadcast booth, all those things. There was no batting practice that day. They gave us a couple batting practice balls that the ushers had from the night before or whatever, and they gave us a couple balls. I mean, it was unbelievable experience. Nora was our person that walked us around, took us all over, got us back up to our suite to be able to talk to John Mozeliak. There's a picture of John Mozeliak there to us. So, was able to get back to that, and it was just, I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan through and through, and I have been for as long as forever. But what they did for my family is just like made me even more of a fan. I told Nolan, I said, the way that Albert Pujols has been for me for the last 20 years, I hope that you are for my son.
Yeah.
Because that will just be so cool for him to experience that. And then you are around for so long, and you get to, he gets to have those memories via photos and videos of that the entire time. But so, when he plays for the Nationals next week, he'll have fans of we'll be fans of his forever.
Still be in red and white.
It just, that's one reason why Nolan Gorman cannot be a part of this trade whenever the Cardinals get.
That would be something. That'd be sad timing on your part.
It would, but you know what?
Still cool memory. Still awesome.
Great. It was so personal. I thought it was going to be batting practice.
Well, because he took the time to reach out to the PR lady for the Cardinals and say, hey, I want to, like, he saw that or came across it, or maybe they showed it.
Was searching. I think someone was searching his name.
Yeah.
Because I didn't them or at him.
Right.
Someone
had to have shown him and him be like, oh, I'd love to, and like go out of his way to do that.
Right.
Which is pretty cool for a 22-year-old
to care.
Yeah.
Like some kid that just got called up. Some dudes are just like, I'm in the bigs now. Like, screw you, I don't have to do this stuff. And he was nice enough to do that. And it was just really, it was so, I expected to be at batting practice, and we're going to be behind the ropes with a bunch of other people that are out there at batting practice. And he walks by,
briefly say hey,
says hi, signs the ball, and moves on. That's what I really expect to be. And I try not to get my hopes up for the entire event leading up to it, because I had no idea what to expect. But it was super personal. We were literally in the Cardinals clubhouse.
Yeah.
It's
sweet.
In entryway area and he's spending one-on-one time with me and my wife. And so it was really, really cool. And so we're big Nolan Gorman fans, even if he's a National.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's not. I mean,
yeah, that's why he cannot.
Hopefully he and Walker are not. That would be something if we kept both of them.
Yes, if that's the way we get the deal done. And Nola was our rep again. She runs all the social media for the St. Louis Cardinals. She was out in L.A., went to L.A. after that game to go do all that. I told her she can come on the show if she wants. She can be on the podcast and talk about the Cardinals or whatever she wants to do. I said, whatever you want. And I told her, if any of the players want to come on, they're more than welcome to as well.
Exactly.
And Nolan knew we have a podcast. He's, they told him why we were there for that day specifically, is for the podcast. So he's aware. So, maybe he just decides to jump on sometime. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Maybe it's a Cardinals thing, but these younger guys, even Gorman, Carlson, Yepes, they're all on Twitter. And it makes sense, but none of them are active during the season, except for one guy.
Was it Carlos Martinez or?
Jack Flaherty.
Oh well, yeah,
he's pretty active.
He's active.
I mean,
Yachty is.
He's not on the mound
on the Instagram. Yachty is sometimes.
Wainwright's fairly active on
Yes.
Twitter. On his off days, he talks about his old man walks and stuff. But,
yeah,
but the younger guys seem more focused. I mean,
it's probably smart. Someone probably tells them probably just you need to stay off of
this
it.
would be a wise decision.
You know, it's funny. We when
Mo talked about not being on Twitter. That was funny.
You know, we had questions about that. People asked on Twitter, "Hey, ask Mo when we did for the Q&A what his Twitter handle is."
Nope. And I believe him. He said, like, I have not been on Twitter. He said he stopped looking at it years ago.
Yeah.
Because it was depressing.
It's depressing. He said how bad of a job he does. Yeah. Is all he could read about.
It was literally like, this is depressing. So he stopped. So he does not get on Twitter. So if you're throwing out Mosaic rants or praise, it's going out in the void.
People, the Cardinals.
Oh yeah, they have people. Oh yeah,
they see everything that we
just
do.
Like the social media lady. I mean, they probably have a whole team of people, helping run that stuff.
So when you say
fan engagement,
when you say mean things on Twitter, someone sees it. The Cardinals.
They're probably not telling Mo.
They're not telling Mo about it, but there's Michael Gersh. That's all Michael Gersh probably does. He just goes on Twitter and finds out what moves.
He's listening. He listens to all the podcasts, reads the blogs. Like, well,
and then he tells Mo his great idea.
Yes.
Look, this one guy says, "Don't trade Gorman," and I think that's a good idea.
That's a good, yeah. We should listen to that.
Yeah, and so he just uses it as his own ideas, and that's all Gersh does.
So all that to say, Michael Gersh probably has a burner account, but Mosaic doesn't really have time for that.
But even if Michael Gersh didn't have a burner account, it was just him, no one would still know who he was.
Because
he doesn't do anything for the St. Louis Cardinals that we know about.
I almost thought of how funny it would be at Blogger Day if somebody asked, so what
does he do?
What does he handle exactly? Do you have him going to minor league games to check up on prospects? Because he's not the one at the end of the day, like pulling the trigger on a trade.
Right. I want to just pull up one last question or statement that we had from Ron.
That's a good point.
This is back from earlier when we were talking about Jeff Albert and all that towards the beginning of the broadcast. But Jeff Albert's credit for success this season is due to in part of having Turner Ward, Albert Pujols in the dugout this season. What do you think?
I think that's a good point, especially Albert. And Mo actually talked about that a little bit at the Q&A as well. Somebody asked him about, what they thought or what he thought Albert was bringing this year. And he said, he said he thought he wasn't not only helping the younger guys, but everybody. And he's brought an energy to the clubhouse that they did. And he actually talked some about their relationship. He talked about how obviously 2011, it was partly cloudy, but he said now it's like that never happened.
Right. They're best friends.
Yeah.
Best friends and as much as you can.
And he did say, like, we didn't want to make that signing just for nostalgia,
which we talked about as the possibility. And I
I'm
still
sure
don't believe
DeWitt's,
him 100%.
I might believe him.
Yeah.
I don't believe DeWitt, though.
Yeah.
DeWitt knew what kind of money and revenue it was going to bring in. But I think Mo is happy that he's been. I mean, Albert's had a pretty good last couple of weeks in terms of productivity. He's hitting a little bit better, hitting the ball harder.
And in the home run derby, he switched to a lighter bat after he wasn't hitting the bomb. And I think maybe he should switch to a lighter bat in the games.
There might be something to that.
Yeah.
Maybe help him catch up to some of the faster stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that Albert Pujols is a credit to some of these kids? I mean, some of the reason the Cardinals are hitting better. I mean, look, who's hitting better this year than they did last year? Goldie. Goldie is having a phenomenal season. He's playing like everyone thought he would a few years ago when he came over to the Cardinals.
I think that's more of like comfortability and having Arenado with him.
Yeah.
Arenado's hitting a lot better.
Yeah, Arenado.
Now Nolan put in a lot of work. So, I mean, he clearly was not satisfied with last year.
So I don't know that I give Albert this credit.
I give him more with like Yepes, maybe some of the, because the younger guys are, especially Yepes,
but they came in hitting, right? Yepes came in breaking.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a slump.
Juan Soto all over him at the home run derby, man. They were very buddy.
But maybe there's a happen that was starting to happen, and then Albert says, "Hey, you're doing this."
Yeah.
Maybe it's what Jeff Albert hasn't done. That's my biggest gripe with Jeff Albert, to be honest, is I don't think he gets guys out of slumps or helps them when they're struggling.
Right.
I.e., Paul DeYoung.
Let's be honest. How could he? If he's not a former player, he's not a former hitter. Like Albert,
analytical data. This is what your swing is doing. Albert says, "I see this."
Yeah, Albert can see and know. Like I've been through slumps, or I've done, or I've flown Pools. Sorry, I've flown open. I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can point it out. I mean, how many times have I seen Juan Soto hit a home run or get a big hit or something, come in the dugout and sorry, I said Juan Soto. I've got Juan Soto on my mind. Maybe that's going to happen in a few weeks. Juan Yepes, my bad. He's so attached to Albert Pujols. But how many times has he come in the dugout to Albert and immediately been like, doing like this? And like, clearly, like, you can tell they're having some sort of conversation. Like, you told me this and I looked for that and that happened. That's another thing. Like pitch recognition and looking for, hey, I think he's going to throw you this and do this. Jeff Albert's not doing that. I mean, he's not. And I think that's the value of Albert. I think they need to find a way, obviously, to bring him back to the team in some sort of role like that.
But why would he? I don't know that he would.
Well, he doesn't have to.
He's a bajillionaire. I mean, what does he care about? He's newly single now, I guess. Maybe he has more time, but he has 5 kids, I think. And he just won the humanitarian award for the ESPYs tonight as well.
Which is awesome.
So he does a lot in the community, as in any community, and for different organizations.
It'd be the same thing as Edmonds and others. Like, why would they? Why would they need to?
Yeah. They don't.
Why would they want to travel that much?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it for Matt Holliday. And he's been wanting to get his kids through before he does any of those types of things.
Kid was the number 1 draft pick. We didn't even get into the draft.
We didn't even talk about the draft.
We will have to do another episode with Kyle Reese on this draft and kind of his grade for the Cardinals, what he thinks. I know he was very ecstatic about the number 1 pick that we had, the lefty.
Oregon State kid.
Yes.
Oregon, as Mr. Manfred.
Yeah, very high on that kid. So
yeah, he doesn't have hard stuff. It's just swing and miss stuff, which the Cardinals don't have a lot of swing and miss.
Yep.
The trade deadline is in 13 days. We're going to end here. 1 hour, 40 minutes in. We're going to end here. The trade deadline is in 13 days. August 2nd is Juan Soto, a St. Louis Cardinal, in 13 days, within the next 13 days.
I think I say yes if Patrick Corbin is with him. That's my spin on.
Do the St. Louis Cardinals win the World Series this year?
If we get Juan Soto.
Yes. If that trade goes through, do the St. Louis Cardinals win the World Series this season?
All things Goldie, Arenado keep doing what they're doing.
So think about the protection it adds. I've put together lineups and I go, yeah, this lineup. Ooh, that lineup. And then I go, shoot.
Even if you have either Carlson or O'Neill gone, one or the other, whoever's left, if O'Neill puts it back togetger or Carlson starts getting it going.
Think about O'Neill batting like 6th.
Would lengthen the lineup so much. I think my big thing on if they win it this year, I think if they go get Soto and Corbin with him, is if Jack comes back and he actually is productive that last month and a half or so. I think that's going to be a big part of it.
All right. So you say Soto's here in the next 13 days and the St. Louis Cardinals win the World Series.
Yes. Yeah. if Corbin's with him.
Hey, watch out. Look, Corbin's going to get out of that terrible team. He's going to come to St. Louis.
He's going to be revitalized.
He's going to be
Lester. Lester left with the Nats last year. Was like, man, I got something to pitch for now.
LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Come on. Think about those 3 travesties of players that they're into their careers. They all are.
You get to a team playing for something, it changes your mindset
None of them are playing
this
season. None of them.
Yeah.
Not a. We had 3. Think about that for 1 second. We had 3 pitchers in the season, in the middle of a 17-game win streak, starting for us.
Their careers are pretty much done,
and their careers are over.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I think the Cardinals are going to have Juan Soto on the team in the next 13 days.
I love how much you flipped in the last 24 hours.
And
great.
I think they actually make a move to solidify the rotation still. Not Patrick Corbin. I think that they're going to try and I think you're right. I think it has to come in. They don't get rid of.
I think that's their best chance of getting.
They don't get rid of Gorman.
They
don't get rid of Gorman. They don't get rid of Tommy. They don't get rid of Walker. They don't get rid of. Those are the 3 I'm going to say. They don't get rid of any of those 3. I think you still lose Carlson and Wynn. And they take on Corbin's contract, and they go pick up a Paul Blackburn type to solidify that, and they try.
Bumgarner.
No, I don't think that's happening. You're not getting Soto and Madison Bumgarner.
No, I do. No, well, especially if they take on Corbin, they're not taking on Bumgarner's. It would be way more
don't
realistic.
Forget, he's still making $17 million,
right?
As an arbitration number.
It'll be 20 or 21 next year.
So yeah,
more after that. Yeah. So no. Yeah, if they get Corbin too, they're definitely not taking on Bumgarner. It would be way more realistic if they do like a Syndergaard type thing for sure.
All right.
That's it. Hour and 44. We had a lot to talk about.
We did.
And we'll get back on a little more of a regular schedule here now.
All about off days. This is where we try to line them up in the off days,
Yes.
so then they have something to listen to. But you have this to listen to tomorrow on the
There you
off
go.
day. You can always catch us on Spotify, Apple. There's other ones.
Anchor, right?
Anchor,
Yep.
all over the place. But you can also watch the whole videos again on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for everyone with the questions tonight. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
we enjoy
love the interactive.
We enjoy questions and appreciate all of them. Follow us on Twitter. That's a winner pod. That's where we do most of our interacting. Not so great on Facebook and those things. I try. Follow Josh Brown at Josh Brown.
At JBrown116.
116. And then me is at Jinx3086. Thanks for watching. Again, I am Ryan Jenkins. That's Josh Brown. And this has been That's a Winner Podcast.
Shooter from the belt to the plate. A swing and a miss. And that's a winner. That's a winner. A World Series winner for the Cardinals. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard. Go crazy. Swinging a long one into left field. Adios, goodbye, and maybe that's the winner. A 3-run homer by Clark, and the Cardinals lead by the score of 7-5. They may go to a World Series on that one, folks.
What a team. What a ride. The Cardinals are world champs in 2011.